I took back my nephew's Christmas present and gave it to my son. My brother Jake has this 8-year-old kid named Connor who's honestly a little terror. Like the kind of kid who breaks stuff on purpose and then laughs about it. But Jake and his wife Melissa think Connor can do no wrong. I have a 10-year-old son named Trevor who's pretty much the opposite. He's quiet, takes care of his stuff, never causes problems. But for some reason, Connor always targets him at family gatherings. Last month at Thanksgiving, Connor literally threw mashed potatoes at Trevor's face. And when Trevor started crying, Jake just laughed and said, "Boys will be boys anyway." I bought Connor this really expensive remote control drone for Christmas. Cost me like $100 because Melissa kept posting on Facebook about how Connor wanted one so badly. I figured maybe if I got him something really nice, he'd start being nicer to Trevor. Christmas Eve comes around and we're all at my parents' house. I'm in the kitchen helping my mom when I hear Trevor screaming from the living room. I run in there and Connor has Trevor pinned down on the couch, sitting on his chest and spitting in his face. Like actual spit running down my kid's cheeks while Connor is laughing like it's the funniest thing ever. Trevor's sobbing and trying to push Connor off, but Connor's bigger and heavier. I immediately grab Connor and pull him off and Trevor runs upstairs crying. When I look around for Jake, he's just sitting there on his phone like nothing happened. I'm like, "Jake, your kid just spit on my son. What the hell?" And he barely looks up and goes, "Connor's just playing around. Trevor needs to toughen up." Melissa chimes in with, "Boys, rough house. It's normal." But here's the thing that really got me mad. My dad was sitting right there, and he saw the whole thing. He tells Jake, "That wasn't playing. That was mean." And Jake actually rolls his eyes and says, "Dad, you don't understand kids these days." So, I march over to the Christmas tree, find Connor's present with my name on it, and take it back to my car. When I come back inside, I find the present I got for Trevor and put it under the tree instead. It was just a book about space that costs like $15, but Trevor loves astronomy. Nobody noticed until Christmas morning when Connor opens all his other presents and starts asking where the drone is. Melissa's looking around confused and Jake asks me if I forgot to bring Connor's gift. I said, "Oh no, I brought it. I just gave it to Trevor instead since Connor doesn't seem to understand how to treat people nicely." The room went dead silent. Connor starts having a complete meltdown, throwing himself on the floor and screaming. Jake jumps up and gets in my face asking what my problem is. I told him my problem is that his kid has been bullying mine for months, and he does nothing about it. Melissa starts yelling about how I'm punishing an innocent child and how dare I ruin Christmas. My mom's trying to calm everyone down, but my dad actually backs me up. He tells Jake that Connor's behavior has been getting worse and worse. Connor immediately turned his meltdown into a full performance, kicking the coffee table, screaming that he hated everyone, and demanding his real present. Jake kept shouting at me that I had crossed the line, that adults shouldn't take sides between children, which was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard because his kid literally spit on mine the night before. Melissa kept insisting that Connor was sensitive and that I had traumatized him by giving Trevor the drone, as if the kid wasn't already terrorizing everyone in the family long before Christmas morning. Meanwhile, Trevor was sitting quietly on the couch holding the drone box like he wasn't sure he was even allowed to touch it, just watching the chaos unfold with these wide, nervous eyes that broke my heart. My dad finally raised his voice, which almost never happens. He told Jake to knock it off, that he and Mom were tired of watching Connor torment Trevor and everyone else, and that Jake's refusal to discipline him was turning him into a nightmare kid that nobody wanted to be around. Jake looked stunned for about half a second, before he switched to blaming my parents for favoring Trevor, talking about how they always acted like Trevor was some golden child, while Connor just needed a little understanding. My dad shot back that the only thing Connor needed was consequences, and that maybe if Jake ever put his phone down long enough to look at his own son he'd realize it. Melissa turned on my dad then, calling him old-fashioned and insensitive and saying that Connor had undiagnosed behavioral challenges that they were managing privately, which was news to everyone because the only management they ever did was handing Connor an iPad when he started screaming. Then, as if things weren't insane enough already, Connor lunged toward Trevor and tried to grab the drone out of his hands. Trevor panicked and held it close, and before I even had time to react, my dad stepped between them and said loudly, "Enough? If Connor can't behave, he doesn't get to open any more presents." Jake looked like he was about to explode. He started yelling at my dad about overstepping boundaries, saying that as Connor's father he was the only one who could decide punishments. My dad just stared at him and said, "You don't punish him. That's why we're here." That sent Jake spiraling into another rant about respect and family loyalty. But at that point I was done. I told him flat out that until he actually parents his kid, Trevor and I weren't going to be around them anymore. Melissa gasped like I'd confessed to murder, and Jake shouted that I was tearing the family apart, which was funny considering the only thing tearing anything apart was Connor knocking over a lamp. During his tantrum, my mom finally stepped in, shaking and almost crying, and told everyone that Christmas was supposed to be a happy day, and if Jake couldn't control his child, they needed to leave. Jake looked genuinely shocked, like it had never occurred to him that anyone could tell him no. Melissa grabbed Connor, still screaming and flailing, and dragged him toward the door while Jake muttered about how everyone had turned against them. They left without saying goodbye. Trevor sat there quietly holding the drone, staring at the door like he expected them to storm back in. My dad patted his shoulder and told him he deserved that gift more than anyone. Trevor looked up at me and whispered, "Am I in trouble?" And it nearly broke me because that kid had done nothing except exist near Connor. I hugged him and told him he wasn't in trouble at all. That sometimes adults behave badly, and it has nothing to do with him. After things calmed down, Trevor and I went outside to test the drone. He was laughing, running across the yard, completely forgetting the disaster that had happened an hour earlier. My parents watched from the porch, and I think they were relieved to see at least one kid in the family getting to have a normal Christmas moment. Jake texted me later that night, a long rant about how I had humiliated his son and weaponized Christmas, and that Connor had cried for hours because of me. I didn't reply. I didn't owe him anything. A few days later, my mom told me privately that Jake and Melissa were furious at everyone and planning to skip family events for the foreseeable future. Honestly, I felt nothing but relief. Trevor finally had peace, and if standing up for my kid made me the villain in Jake's eyes, then fine, he'd been the hero of his own bad parenting story for years. At least now he couldn't pretend this was anyone's fault but his own. Story 2. I was released from the hospital a day early, and when I came home, I saw my wife and her lover in our bed. I left without a word, blocked all the cards, and changed the locks. But then something happened that no one expected. Chapter 1. Discharge. The nurse smiled as she handed me my release papers. "You're good to go, Mr. Hayes." Doctor signed off early. Said, "Your recovery was ahead of schedule." I gave a faint smile and nodded, though my chest still ached slightly from the procedure. 3 nights in the hospital, hooked up to machines, and not a single visit from my wife, Claire. She had said she was distressed to visit. Hospitals, right? The cab ride home was quiet. My mind wandered. From the smell of antiseptic to the comfort of my own bed to the food Claire might have cooked to how quiet the house would be with just the two of us again. As the car pulled into the driveway, I noticed something strange. Claire's car was there, but parked sideways across the driveway like she was in a hurry. That wasn't like her. I paid the driver, grabbed my overnight bag, and quietly stepped into the house. Everything was dark except for a single dim light coming from upstairs. I didn't call out. I don't know why. I just had a heavy feeling in my gut. Something was off. The stairs creaked beneath my feet as I made my way up. The bedroom door was half open. I pushed it gently. That's when I saw them. Claire and a man I didn't recognize, tangled in the sheets of my bed. Our wedding photo was still on the nightstand, tilted slightly like it was watching the entire betrayal unfold. I stood there for a full 10 seconds. They didn't notice. No screaming, no confrontation, no breakdown. Just silence. I slowly backed away, walked out the front door, got back into the cab that hadn't even left yet, and simply said, "Ever." Chapter 2. Lockdown. The cab driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror. "Empfort, you just got home, man." I didn't respond. I was staring out the window, jaw tight, thoughts a storm of images and realizations. My wife, our bed, a stranger, laughter, that carefree way she once touched me. "Just drive," I muttered. But I didn't go to the airport. Midway there, I asked the driver to take me downtown instead to my lawyer's office. I'd known Carl Matthews for years back. When I used to help him troubleshoot his computers on weekends, he owed me, and right now, I needed every favor I could cash in. 30 minutes later, I walked into his office, still wearing the sweatpants and zip-up hoodie I'd left the hospital in. "Tom." Carl looked up, surprised. "You were supposed to be in recovery another day." I gave him a tired nod. "Plans changed." He motioned me inside. I shut the door behind me, and in a low voice, I explained what I saw. I didn't raise my voice once. I didn't curse. I didn't cry. I just laid it out like a puzzle that had finally clicked together. Carl leaned back, hands clasped. "You want a divorce?" "Yes, but I want more than that." I reached into my bag and pulled out a file I had started preparing long before the hospital stay. "Here are the deeds, the bank accounts, the power of attorney Claire never updated after our marriage. She never knew I restructured the business into a trust last year." Carl flipped through the pages, his eyebrows slowly lifted. "You've already moved everything." "Everything," I said calmly. "The house, the business, the savings transferred." Claire thought she had access to all of it. But she doesn't, he blinked. She has no idea, does she? I shook my head. And by tonight, she'll be locked out of the accounts, credit cards frozen. And she'll need a new place to sleep. Carl let out a low whistle. You're going to war. No. I stood. I'm already winning it. Chapter 3, the locks clicked. By the time the sun began to dip below the skyline, the house that once echoed with memories of warmth and laughter had become a cold fortress, one I no longer welcomed her in. The locksmith arrived within hours. I didn't waste time. Every lock on every door was replaced. The garage opener was reset. The home security code she'd once chosen was disabled, and I had the alarm company flag her as unauthorized access. I knew she'd try to return once the fun was over, once she realized what she'd lost. But I wasn't waiting. I drove to our bank next. The clerk looked surprised when I handed over my ID and asked to close a joint account. Claire had been spending from it for weeks like it was an endless stream. But she hadn't checked it today. She would. I moved the remaining $23,000 into my private account, the one she didn't know existed. Then I signed a form that would freeze any activity under her name, citing financial fraud and unauthorized access pending investigation. The manager didn't even flinch. You're not the first, she said, sighing. But you're one of the few who caught it in time. Not caught, I corrected. I let her think she was winning. Next stop, our shared car. It wasn't technically in her name, though she'd always bragged about her luxury SUV. That afternoon, I had it picked up and returned to the dealership under our pre-agreed buyback clause. I didn't even need to be present, just a phone call. A signature, gone. By the time Claire and her lover walked up the driveway, probably thinking they'd sneak into our bed again, there was nothing left for them to enter. The key didn't work. The car was gone. Their credit cards were declined. I watched from across the street, standing beside Carl's SUV. He handed me a coffee. Claire banged on the door. I let her. Her voice rose in disbelief. Tom, open the door. This isn't funny. Her lover, the smug idiot from earlier, tried to look tough. Yo, open up, man. We're not here to fight. I sipped the coffee slowly. Then I turned to Carl and said, let's go, as the car pulled away. I looked back one last time. Claire had collapsed on the porch, crying now. Her lover pacing, checking his phone, probably realizing he no longer had anywhere to go either. But I didn't feel pity, not an ounce. This was only the beginning. Chapter 4, the unraveling begins. The morning after the lockout, I was sipping coffee on the patio of a quiet hotel downtown, watching the early commuters scurry past with briefcases and earbuds, peaceful, detached. Then my phone vibrated. 10 missed calls from Claire, 5 from unknown number. I could guess who that was. In one voicemail. I didn't listen to it. Instead, I opened the browser on my phone and visited the attorney's client portal. Everything was ready. Divorce papers filed, restraining order application pending with video evidence. From the home security camera. Yes, I reviewed the footage. She didn't even close the blinds. I made sure the judge would see it, too. Next was the civil suit. Claire had siphoned thousands from our joint savings, some of which were from my military disability benefits protected under federal law. My lawyer said she'll either return the money or face criminal charges. I didn't care which. The best part, her lover's name, Matt, was attached to a few of the charges, too. She had transferred money directly to his Venmo. Rookie mistake. I also called the university. You see, Claire worked part-time in the administration office of a local college, and Matt was a tenure professor there. In a mail to the Title IX department with clear documentation of their own campus relationship, ensured an investigation was opened. Apparently, they'd used school property in time for their little getaways. I received a reply later that afternoon. Thank you for your report. This has been forwarded to the Office of Academic Integrity in HR. It was like setting a row of dominoes into motion. By lunchtime, Claire sent another message. Please, can we just talk? Everything's gotten out of control. We didn't mean to hurt you like this. I almost laughed out loud. They hadn't meant to hurt me. Of course they had. They just didn't think I'd respond this way. They expected a quiet, broken man. Instead, they got strategy. They got silence. They got the kind of revenge only a man who had once planned battlefield operations could deliver. And the best was still to come because they hadn't yet realized who now owned the house, and who was about to visit her family with receipts. Chapter 5, the family meeting. Claire's parents had always treated me like an obligation, a placeholder until she found someone better. Her mother, Cynthia, once told me at Thanksgiving, "You're not exactly the husband we prayed for, but at least you pay the bills." I remembered that line word for word. So when I pulled into their suburban driveway that Sunday afternoon, I wasn't sure what to expect. I wore a calm smile and carried a slim folder under my arm. Claire opened the door. Her eyes widened. What are you doing here? I brought something for your parents, I replied coolly. Before she could object, Cynthia appeared behind her with that familiar, condescending look. Oh? She muttered. The ghost returns. I didn't rise to the bait. May I come in? Claire hesitated. Cynthia smirked. It's fine. Let the man speak. They led me into the living room where her father, Gerald, sat in his recliner, flipping through a golf magazine. 5 minutes, Claire said flatly. Less, I promised. I opened the folder, carefully removing 3 documents. The first, a detailed breakdown of the $38.00 in unauthorized withdrawals Claire had made from our joint savings, including screenshots, timestamps, and the transaction where she sent money to Matt for a getaway. The second, a printed email from the college's ethics committee confirming the investigation into Professor Matthew Hale and Claire for professional misconduct, and the third, the new deed to the house. You see, Claire never noticed that I quietly sold the property weeks before our issues exploded. The buyer, my cousin Derek, who then leased it back to me for 1 month under a private contract. Claire was technically trespassing every minute she'd stayed there after the locks changed. Cynthia's face twisted. First, you're bluffing. I handed Gerald the documents. You're welcome to verify them with the county registrar. He skimmed the paperwork in stunned silence. Claire was trembling. You'll be hearing from my lawyer again, I said. I'm pursuing recovery of funds, and if necessary, we'll go to court. Federal theft of VA-protected income is a felony. Claire's voice cracked. Why are you doing this? For 12 years, I said quietly. I put you first and you let me come home from the hospital, just to see you with another man in our bed. You mocked me, laughed at me. I turned to Cynthia and you encouraged it. So now I'm just returning the favor legally. Then I handed her one final paper. A cancellation notice for the mortgage assistance I've been paying on their home every month. Without ever telling them, I was going to surprise you with a full payoff in December, I added with a shrug. But now, marry early for closure. And with that, I walked out. Behind me, I could hear Claire yelling, Cynthia sobbing, and Gerald shouting at both of them. It was music, but revenge wasn't about noise. It was about silence and strategy. And I was just getting started. Chapter 6, The Unraveling. In the weeks that followed, the silence from Claire's side of the world spoke volumes. No more mocking texts, no snide emails, nothing. Because every corner of her once carefully curated life was falling apart. First came the eviction notice. Claire had ignored it at first, assuming I was bluffing about the ownership transfer. But when sheriff's deputies came to serve it in person, she broke down sobbing in front of the neighbors. Matt, her better man, was nowhere to be found. Turns out his position at the college had been quietly suspended pending the ethics investigation. And when the screenshots of their messages surfaced, some on university servers, he didn't just lose his job. His tenure position was rescinded. Pension gone. Public apology issued by the college's board. His wife, by the way, had no idea until I sent her an envelope anonymously containing Claire and Matt's beach selfies, with captions like, "He makes me feel alive again." Matt's wife filed for divorce immediately. Claire tried reaching out to her family, but Gerald, he refused to even answer her calls. Cynthia was too humiliated to show her face at the country club. They were now 3 months behind on their mortgage and creditors were calling daily. As for Claire herself, she landed a retail job at a home goods store, the kind of place she once mocked on social media. But the best part, she tried to play the victim online. Facebook posts about betrayal, emotional manipulation, and how hard life had been. Except I had receipts. So one day, I simply created a burner account and replied to one of her dramatic posts with a polite comment. Didn't you mock your disabled husband for being hospitalized while you were with your affair partner in his bed? Curious if that's in your next post, too. Dozens of people liked it. Some shared it. Others commented with shock. Her social circle eroded overnight. That night, she messaged me. Claire, why are you doing this to me? Can't we at least talk, me? I did talk 12 years straight. You didn't listen. I blocked her. That was the last time I ever heard from Claire. Epilogue. 1 year later, I'm in a better place now. Literally and figuratively. I bought a cozy cabin by a lake close to the VA hospital. I go fishing some mornings, volunteer with fellow veterans, and I started a nonprofit that helps military families secure housing and legal aid, funded partly by the restitution Claire was court-ordered to repay every month. Like clockwork, $52,319 lands in the nonprofit's account. Claire's monthly court-ordered installment. People ask if I miss her. I don't, I just miss who I thought she was. But revenge, no. This wasn't revenge. This was closure. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Tell us what you have. Think about this story in the comments below. Like the story if you think the story is justified. Share it with someone who needs this energy. And subscribe to Lauren's story for more jaw-dropping tales of betrayal and justice. Because here, every lie has its reckoning, and every betrayal finds its shadow.